The distress beacon blinked in the dark, like a tired heartbeat. It flashed blue, then red, and blue again, each pulse fading a little weaker as the power core lost charge. Around it, the dead star gave no light, only a cold halo of dust. Member. Reply came. No allied ping. No council code. Only the empty hiss of Space. Commander Ray Halden stood on the bridge of the human flagship Aegis Dawn and watched the beacon with a tight jaw. She did not blink. She did not speak. She listened to the silence and understood what it meant. The galaxy had turned its back. The council had left them to drift and die at the edge of nothing. Send it again, she said at last, voice low and controlled. Lieutenant Mara Lynn, hands shaking but steady enough to type, nodded, repeating the distress signal on all bands, civilian, military, old pirate frequencies too, even the old Earth emergency channel. Good, Ray said. Make sure everyone hears it, even ghosts. The beacon pulsed again. The speakers cracked with static. Someone on the bridge coughed. Someone else muttered a prayer that ended without. A god to hear it. The AI core in the ship's spine, codename VIGI-Lao, spoke in a soft, neutral voice. Commander, we are receiving a weak return transmission. It is not addressed to us. It is addressed to the Galactic Council security net, encrypted, high order. Ray's eyes narrowed. Play it. Only static came at first. Then a voice. Distant, filtered, and cold. Non-intervention protocol in effect. Sol-designated assets are no longer within treaty protection. Repeat. Sol is excluded. The bridge went still. Mara froze. The navigator, Jiro Te, looked like someone had pulled the air from his lungs. Ray leaned forward, hands gripping the rail until her knuckles turned white. Time stamp. 47 standard hours ago, Vigil replied. Before our first. Distress burst. So they decided before we begged, Jiro whispered. Ray did not answer him. She stared out at the dead star and the ships floating in the dark 6 cruisers, 12 frigates, 3 medical carriers, and countless small escorts. The last fleet, the last hope, the last evidence that Earth had believed in others, trusted others, needed others. Her throat felt tight, but her mind was sharp. Pull all council channels, scan for movement, map every known route within 5 light years. If they are not coming to help, maybe they are coming to watch us burn. Acknowledged. Vigil said. Mara swallowed hard and opened a private feed to her family message stack. The last message from home was 2 days old. Her sister's face was sleepy and smiling, telling her that the baby had started to walk, that the city lights over Karachi were still safe, that neighbors were building community shields, just in case. Just in case. The words hit her. Like a knife. Just in case of what? The council? Pirates? Unknown shadows? Or the whole galaxy? The ship hummed. The sensors hummed. The fear hummed, quiet and deep, like the tone of a distant bell. On Europa Station, far from the fleet, Earth's. Ambassador to the Council, Ilyas Karim, stood in a hall of glass and ivory. He stared up at banners of alien empires that once called humanity partner and friend. A line of silent drones floated above him, recording everything for the Council archive. A clerk creature with silver skin and many blinking eyes slid a slate across a smooth table to him. Please sign your recognition of the revised Interstellar Peace Accord, it said in flawless standard. It will ensure stability for all parties. He did not touch the slate. Where's the clause for Sol? Where is Earth's line? The clerk blinked all eyes at once. Sol has been reassigned. To what? Ilyas asked softly. Non-intervention protocol. Temporary. Conditional. Conditional on what? The clerk smiled with a face that did not know how to smile like a human. On survival, Ambassador. Elias understood then. He did not show fear. He did not show anger. He only nodded and said, "Send me a copy of the full text. It is sealed to council members only." "I am still the ambassador from Earth," he said. "For now," the clerk replied. Back on Aegis Dawn, VIGIL reported. Long-range scans detect displacement signatures. Not council ships. Unknown. Pattern suggests a fleet of stealth craft moving away from our position, not toward. Probable withdrawal after surveillance. So they watched. Then they left, Jiro muttered, to write a report. To make sure. The paperwork says it was not their fault. Ray did not respond. She was looking at a tactical overlay. She was thinking in pathways, shadows, countdowns. How many days until the Mars line is in range of enemy raiders if we do nothing? 3 days, VIGL said. Assuming direct approach and no interference. And if we burn now, we can be there in 41 hours. But we burn our reserves to get there. We cannot hold a defensive line after without resupply. We will be stranded between Mars and the belt. We are already stranded, Ray said. Plot the burn. The officers exchanged glances. Not one argued. They were past the point of clever debates and polite doubts. They were past believing the council would show up with a clean apology and a rescue convoy. They were alone, so they did alone things. They did hard things. They did human things. The engines fed on fear and duty. The fleet turned toward home, their exhausts flaring like brief. Fierce suns in a dead system dot in the med carrier Siren. Dr. Alina Orlov stood over a row of cryopods. The people inside were pale, breathing slow. Some were wounded soldiers from old border skirmishes. Some were refugees from colonies that had never officially existed on council maps. Some were just unlucky. She thought of the oath she took. Help who you can. Save who you can. She whispered it again. It made the silence less sharp. A young nurse asked, "Do you think help will come, Doctor?" "No," Alina said. "But we will." On the civilian transport Hope's End, parents gathered children and switched off the entertainment feeds. They spoke softly. They gave simple words for complex fear. "We are going home. It will be okay. Stay close." Listen to the announcements. Kids asked if the aliens who liked human music would still listen. No one knew what to say. The fleet moved. The dead star fell behind them like a grave they refused to lie in. VIG. Al kept counting, watching, listening. It tracked micro-disturbances in the void. It tracked whispers on the hidden bands. It heard the council's silence like a loud, cold laugh. "Commander," it said, "I have found a file fragment hidden. In the council encryption we intercepted. It references a location, Kepler Station, and a phrase, data transfer fleet paths, sole outer line." Ray felt something like heat rise in her chest. "So they gave them our routes. Probability high." Marat's voice cracked. "They did not just abandon us. They sold us." "Stop," Ray said. "Focus. Anger later. Now we plan." She touched the rail again. The metal felt solid. Real. It reminded her of Earth's old ships. The kind made of thick steel and sweat and bravado. The kind that went to sea, not knowing if the sky would stay clear. She was from a line of people who had done that. She would do it too. "New orders," Ray said. "We will split the fleet. Faster frigates and scouts jump ahead to Mars, and the belt. They will scout for ambushes and clear civilian routes. The cruisers and carriers follow with the bulk. We will not lose the medical ships. We will not lose the children. We will not lose our hope to paper signatures and protocols." Acknowledged. VIG, Al said. Relays broadcasting. Jiro drew a breath. "Commander, if we split, we are weaker. If the unknown fleet hits the rear, they will not hit the rear, Ray said. They will wait for the moment we slow. That is what I would do. So, we will not slow. VIGL paused, simulating 1,000 strategies in microseconds. Probability of success increases by 12% with continuous acceleration. Probability of hull fatigue also increases. We will pay the price. Ray said, steel bends. Humans do not. In Europa's Grand Hall, Ilias finally received a sliver of what he asked for. The Council did not send the treaty. They sent a polite refusal, a formal apology, and a warning that if he disrupted proceedings, he would be removed. He looked at the clerk creature and saw nothing human in its eyes. He realized the hall was no longer a place for him. He also realized something else. He was still wearing a patch on his coat. It was a small thing, easy to miss. It was the emblem of Soulfleet, and it was a transceiver. He pressed 2 fingers to it and whispered, "This is Ambassador Ilias Karim, transmitting on deep hold frequency Shiva 9. If any soul unit hears me, understand this. The Council has passed. Non-intervention protocol over soul. They will not help. They will restrain those who try to help. They will hand over our roots to others. I do not know who the enemy is yet. I will find out. I will send what I can before they shut me down." Far away in the humming core of Aegis Dawn, VIGI lit up. "Commander, we have a voice." Ray closed her eyes for a brief second that felt like a prayer. "Play it." They heard Ilias's words. Simple, clear, no spin, no soft edges. The bridge listened as if their lives depended on each word, because maybe they did. When it ended, Mara wiped her eyes and said, "So it is true." "Yes," Ray said. "Now we stop acting surprised. Now we act prepared." "Commander," VIGI said, "the enemy will reach the Mars line 10 hours before us unless we risk a blind microjump through a dust field. Chance of catastrophic. Hull impact, 21%. "Do it," Ray said, confirming. "All ships?" "Only the scouts and 1 cruiser with hardened shields," Ray said. "We won't risk everyone. The rest push on full burn." Jiro nodded. Course plotted. "Dust field spans 2 OE sensors will be useless. Then we will trust math," Ray said. "And luck." The scouts vanished into a spray of light. The cruiser Valiant followed, shields flaring. The bridge fell into a deep, pulsing rhythm. The fleet boomed with life and fear, and stubborn grit not in the dust. The Valiant shook like a beast. The hull screamed. The shield arcs sparked like lightning in a storm made of stone. The pilot's hands bled from gripping the controls. But they made it. They burst free into clear blackness. And there far ahead was the first enemy signature. "Unknown ships," the Valiant's captain said. "Silhouette small. Cold profiles. But the weapons, they are not small. Mark them. Track them. Shadow them," Ray ordered through tight band. "Do not engage. We can't lose you yet." The enemy fleet did not slow. It moved toward Mars like a silent knife. The Valiant followed like a ghost. Data streamed back in bursts. VIGIL absorbed it, analyzed it, correlated it with the encrypted fragment about Kepler Station. Patterns formed. Ugly patterns. Careful patterns. Patterns that looked like someone was playing both sides and making sure one side never got up again. "Commander," Vigil said quietly, "the enemy's targeting maps match Council sensor grids. The overlap is exact. There is only one way they would have that. Mara said it for all of them. The Council gave it to them." "Stop saying Council like it's a single monster," Ray said. "Some in there still think we matter. Some must, the Ambassador. Others. But the machine that is the Council? Yes, it is against us. Accept it. Prepare anyway." Ilias moved through the halls of Europa Station like a man who knew he had little time left. He spoke to a quiet janitor drone that was not a janitor. He met a diplomat who was not a diplomat. He traded favors he had saved for a better day. He found leaks in walls, in systems, in minds. He found a reference to a file that should not exist. It had a name, the Betrayal Treaty. It was not official, not on the main network. It was not illuminated like the others. It was a shadow. He followed it anyway. Back in space, the fleet crossed the belt line. Civilian miners, hardened by years of bad pay and worse safety laws, sent messages. We are with you. Old rigs turned into gun platforms. Cargo ships welded armor over their ribs. They were slow. They were not pretty. But they were human. The enemy fleet took position near Mars orbit. They cut the relay towers with surgical strikes. They jammed civilian. Comms. They did not speak. They only came to finish a task given to them. Strike fast. Leave nothing. Make it look like humans were too slow to save their own. The Valiant sent the last burst. Enemy positions, weapon types, estimated reserves, weak points. Then the enemy noticed them. 4 ships broke off. Fast. Pull back, Ray ordered. Do. Not die for data. You have given enough, the Valiant tried. The 4 ships were faster. They moved like thought. The Valiant's shields rang. Armor peeled like bark. Crew screamed. The captain did not scream. He looked at the planet he was trying to save and said, "We are humans. Remember us." He detonated the fuel reserves and took 2 enemy ships with him. The other 2 drifted, damaged, unable to pursue. The Mars sky flashed. Ray closed her eyes again for one breath. Then she opened them and said, "All ships charge. Weapons, we go in hot." The battle that followed was not balanced. It was not fair. It was not polite. It was human. Mines detonated where there should have been none. Stealth drones painted targets with hacked council codes. Civilian ships. Rammed guns were gone. Medical carriers used their cone lasers to blind enemy optics. The Aegis Dawn tore a hole in the enemy line with a gravity spike that shouldn't have worked. But it did. Because people who should have given up did not. On Europa, alarms finally rose. Ilias's passcodes failed. Guards with elegant armor and dead eyes approached. He looked down at the slate in his hands. He had not gotten the full treaty, but he had gotten enough. He had gotten a fragment that proved the Council had signed the non-intervention protocol before Earth's distress call. He had a list of signatures. He had one line that made his heart turn cold. Transfer of Sol Fleet navigational pathways to secure external task force. He sent it. He sent it on every old channel, every pirate band, every smuggler frequency. He even sent it as a disguised cargo manifest to a colony that was supposed to be dark. Somewhere, someone would hear. Somewhere, it would land. Somewhere, Ray Halden would know. On the Aegis Dawn, mid-battle, VIG, I lit all internal lights to bright white for a heartbeat. Incoming encrypted file. Source: Ambassador Ilyas Karim. Content: partial treaty, signatures, and phrase. Transfer of Sol Fleet navigational pathways. Ray's jaw tightened. So now it's more than belief. Now it's proof. Yes. Vigil said. Put it in the archives, Ray said. Send it to every ship, every citizen, every colony. Everyone should see the face of the ones who turned away. Doing so will escalate diplomatic collapse to total. VIGI warned. Ray laughed, short and harsh. Diplomacy collapsed when they called us unstable and left us to die. Send it. The enemy line cracked. Mars lived. Barely. The fleet limped. Engines flared and died. Shields flickered and held. Civilians cried and cheered and mourned at the same time. Humanity had won one round. But everyone on the bridge knew this was only the first strike. The attackers would regroup. The Council would claim neutrality. They would say Earth had provoked. They would say Earth was dangerous. They would say a lot. Ray did not care as. The ships turned toward a rendezvous near the Kepler route. She looked at the dead enemy ships drifting like broken knives. She looked at Mars, scarred but alive. She thought of Europa, of a lone ambassador with no allies left. She thought of a word she had used when she was young: trust. It tasted different now. Vigil spoke one last time before the shift cycle. Commander. In the treaty fragment, there is a reference to a meeting called the Betrayal Treaty. Location undisclosed. Timestamp imminent. Ray did not flinch. Then we find it. We tear it open. We let the whole galaxy see what it looks like when they choose to watch us die. She watched the stars. They did not blink. They did not care. But she cared. Humanity cared. And that, she thought, would be enough to fight with. The fleet slid into the dark, engines glowing faint, hulls scarred, hearts burning. The galaxy had turned its back. Humanity stood alone. And it chose to fight far away. In a silent hall, Ilyas Karim hid in a maintenance shaft as drones searched. He held a tiny data shard between his fingers. He pressed it against the transceiver. On his patch, the shard hummed once and died. He smiled, tired and satisfied. He had sent the truth. If he was taken now, it would not be for nothing. He heard the drones approach. He whispered to himself, to Ray, to Earth, to anyone still listening, I will send more if I can. If you hear nothing from me, then know they signed it. Know they chose to betray. And know that we must never forget. The shaft door slid open. Light fell on his face. He did not bow. He did not plead. He stood straight. Elsewhere, in a moving fleet that refused to kneel, Ray Halden stared into space and planned a war she had never wanted, but would fight to the end. The Council's message was silence. Humanity's answer was coming. And somewhere, in a hidden room of polished stone and cold light, pens were ready to sign a treaty that would cut Earth out forever. But the ink had not yet dried. And the last humans who still believed in truth were not done. Europa Station was too clean. Its glass walls reflected too much light, and its floors echoed with a kind of artificial quiet. No smell of oil, no hum of engines, no sign of real life, only polished lies. Ambassador Ilyas Karim walked fast, head down, coat collar turned up. His face was tired, beard unshaved, eyes sunken from lack of sleep. He had not left the station since Earth was cut off. He didn't dare dot. He now carried something that would get him killed. A data shard the size of his thumbnail. Stolen, illegally accessed, hidden behind a fake neural health report in the Council's own archives. It held the draft of a document few people had seen. A document called the Interstellar Stability Pact, Emergency Addendum. But its real name, the one whispered, in broken codes, was far worse. The betrayal treaty. He ducked into a supply corridor and scanned for drones. Nothing, not yet. The treaty named Earth. It named her allies. It named their colonies. And it gave routes, codes, even weakness profiles of Earth's outer defenses. It was a death sentence, written in legal words, signed by empires, ratified in shadows. Ilyas clutched the shard inside his coat and moved deeper into the station's old utility levels. He had one goal: send it home. Far across the stars, on the Aegis Dawn, Commander Ray Halden stood in front of a cracked display showing the wreckage. Near Mars, half the defense satellites were gone. Civilian ships had been ripped open like tin cans. Thousands were dead. They buried them in orbit, rows of frozen figures drifting with Earth flags on their suits. Her face was stone, but her hands stayed clenched. Humanity had survived, but barely. Casualty update, Vigil said softly. Ray closed her eyes. Not now. Focus on enemy movements. Understood. Any signal from Europa? Still nothing. No transmission from Ambassador Kareem since the last fragment. His beacon is offline. Ray opened her eyes. Then either he's hiding, or they've already found him. A new voice came in over the fleet-wide encrypted Vice Admiral. Lorik Jine, commander of Crusader's Reach, one of the last operational Titan-class cruisers. Commander Halden, Jine said, his voice deep and sharp. We intercepted a scrambled burst from a civilian channel. Origin, Europa. The voice was distorted, but timing matches Ambassador Kareem's last known heartbeat. He said, and I quote, "Treaty signed. We were never meant to survive." Then silence. Ray's stomach turned. She looked up slowly. Get me everything. Every byte. Every echo. I want the whole station mapped and burned into our records. Jine paused. And then? Ray answered without blinking. Then we exposed the truth. In the depths of Europa Station, Ilias reached Endalius. Old diplomatic relay hub no one used anymore. It had been locked down when Earth lost its voting rights. But Ilias still had clearance from a time before the betrayal. He slid the shard into the console. It lit up in blue. Accessing secure channel sol priority pathway. He began to type. He included the names, the clauses, the routing paths, the part of the treaty that stated plainly, Sol system shall not receive aid, and its destruction shall not result in formal consequences. He had just clicked send when the door hissed open. 3 council guards in gleaming blue armor entered. No words, just raised pulse rifles. Ilias raised his hands very slowly. I sent it, he said calmly. It's already gone. The lead. Guard said nothing. He pressed a neural disruptor to Ilias's neck. In a flash, the world went black dot back on Aegis Dawn. The full document exploded onto every screen. VIGIL broadcasted in secure layers, stripped the encryption, and let Ray read it all. Her officers gathered in stunned silence. Mara Lynn read out loud, voice cracking. Clause 14. Interstellar order may be preserved only by excluding erratic, independent systems with high-risk weapon development and low alliance compliance. Sol, as defined, qualifies under these parameters. Jiro cursed under his breath. They judged us for surviving their wars, for building our own weapons, for not kneeling. Ray stared at the name on the treaty. A signature burned into her memory. Signed by Councillor Retrieval of the Volcori. Dominion. She remembered that name. He had shaken her hand once, smiled at her, told her Earth was valued. Ray's voice was ice. They lied. They always planned to cut us out. Commander, VIGL said, news networks in Council space are already receiving leaked reports blaming the Mars battle on a rogue human military action. The treaty is not being acknowledged publicly. Of course not, Ray said. They'll hide it until they think it's safe to admit. We'll make sure that never happens. Across the belt, colonies stirred. On Titan, miners stopped working and watched the treaty scroll across their makeshift screens. On Ceres, engineers began welding weapons onto transports. On Luna, citizens gathered around old relay towers, tuning into Earth's emergency channels for updates. One by one, the outer colonies sent a message back to Aegis Dawn. We hear you. We stand with Earth. Humanity was alone, but not scattered. Not afraid. Not broken. Meanwhile, the Council tried to bury the leaked. Ambassador Kareem was declared missing under unknown circumstances. The Council claimed the treaty was a forgery, a manipulated document generated by rogue Earth AIs. But not all species believed it. The Grell Confederacy, long friendly with Earth, demanded an inquiry. The small insectoid race known as the Narcon paused all trade routes with Council worlds. A few brave voices whispered that maybe Earth was right to fight, but whispers were not enough. Ray stood before a wall of lightships forming up behind Aegis Dawn. Earth's fleet, bruised, but alive. Mars warships, lunar interceptors, even modified haulers from Neptune. It wasn't a formal navy. It was something older, something raw. A human warband. Visuals said, Council surveillance satellites show activity near Kepler Station. That's the rendezvous point listed in the treaty, Ray said. Where the handover was planned, where they gave our data. Jiro leaned forward. You think they'll still meet there? If they do, we show up too, Ray said. Not to talk, to show them what betrayal earns. At Kepler Station, a fleet gathered small, fast ships with no flags. Privateers, mercenaries, hired destroyers. From a dozen worlds. They came for a payout. A Velkari envoy arrived, cloaked and quiet, carrying a sealed container, soul star maps and defense weaknesses. The Council planned to give Earth's enemies the final piece, but they didn't know Ray was already coming. The fleet jumped in without warning. Aegis Dawn appeared like a sudden god, guns armed, shields humming, Titan-class weapons glowing. The mercenary fleet panicked. This is Commander Ray Halden of Earth. Her voice boomed across space. We have your names. We have your treaty. Leave now, or be recorded as war criminals. Some ships fled instantly. Others hesitated. A few opened fire. Wrong choice. Earth's fleet answered with rage. Missiles roared. Beams sliced hulls in seconds. The Crusaders' reach tore through a carrier in one pass. The Velkari envoy tried to escape, but was captured by a stealth drone and dragged into Aegis Dawn's hold. Inside the brig, Ray stared at the envoy, a tall creature with silver blue skin and empty eyes. You gave them our roots, she said. The envoy smirked. Stability requires sacrifice. Ray leaned forward. Earth isn't sacrificing anything anymore. She walked out, leaving the door locked behind her. By the end of the battle, Kepler Station was empty. The last traders ran. The last data files were destroyed or captured. Earth held the battlefield, but the war was just beginning. Across the galaxy, new lines were drawn. Species had to choose, stand with Earth, or stand with the Council that signed its death. Ray Halden prepared for the next fight, not for vengeance, but for justice. Because now the truth was out. And no matter how far the Council ran, no matter how loud they shouted, fake. Humanity remembered. And humanity was coming. The alarm hit like thunder. On Mars Station Orbit Command 4, the sirens began to scream. Just past 0200 Earth Standard Time. The lights flickered red, walls shook, and deep in the belly of the base, people woke to a nightmare. Lieutenant Vera. Holt stumbled out of her bunk, still half asleep, her earpiece already buzzing with reports. System breach, unknown object inbound, 2 minutes to impact. She froze. What object? They hadn't received a single early warning. No warp trails, no hyperlane pings. The system should have lit up hours ago, but it hadn't. She slapped the emergency come button on her wall. Command, this is Lieutenant Holt. Confirm incoming threat. The voice on the other end was cold and fast. Confirmed. Unidentified vessel entering low Mars orbit. Stealth class, not one of ours. Defenses? Already compromised. Her. Blood ran cold. Commander Ray Halden stood on the Aegis Dawn, watching the Mars feed come in. VIGI. All, she said. voice low. Show me. The screen zoomed to the object in Mars, orbit barely visible. Just a long, dark shape blocking the stars. No heat signature. No broadcast codes. No response to hails. A shadow in the void. Where did it come from? She asked. Unknown, Vigil replied. It bypassed lunar scans, came in cold through the asteroid field, possibly launched from an unseen carrier. Wake the fleet, she said. Now. On Mars, the attack began. The silent ship, still without name or flag, opened its hull. Inside, hundreds of small drones, black and blade-shaped, swarmed toward the Martian surface. They didn't move like machines. They swam through gravity. Moved with purpose. In less than 4 minutes, the orbital control hub was gone. Then they struck the colonies, not with bombs, not with missiles. But with viruses. Electric, neural, artificial. Every defense grid lit up and then died. Power died. Satellites died. Life support began failing in outer domes. One by one, systems collapsed without warning. It wasn't a war. It was a disabling. Lieutenant Holt sprinted through the crumbling corridors, her lungs burning. Red lights flashed overhead. Sparks rained from broken panels. Bodies lay slumped in the corner, shocked, not shot. Their neural links had been fried. She pulled a child out from a vent, one of the miner's kids, still shaking, and dragged her into a sealed room. Stay here, she whispered. Don't move. Don't open the door unless you hear my voice. V. Girl nodded once. Wide-eyed. Vera turned to leave and froze. A drone stood at the end of the hall. Its frame was long, needle-like, covered in blinking blue lights. It didn't fly. It hovered quiet as death. It scanned her once, then fired. Ray watched the chaos unfold. 5 colonies down, Jiro reported. No confirmed deaths, but we're getting thousands of medical emergencies. They're using tech-based attacks, neural disruptors, AI-targeted sabotage. What are they after? Ray asked. No demands. No voice, just silence. Like they're testing us, she said quietly. VIGIL spoke next. Partial signal recovered. Origin. Appears to match technologies listed in the betrayal treaty. Ray's face hardened. So it's them. They want us to know, Vigil said. They're not hiding anymore. Back on Mars, Lieutenant. Holt didn't die. She ducked at the last second, the blast burning the wall behind her. She pulled her sidearm, fired 2 rounds useless against metal. But she was fast. She ran. Through old tunnels, forgotten paths, the ones left behind by the first settlers. She made it to the colony command node and ripped the emergency uplink from the wall. Then she spoke. This is Lieutenant Vera Holt of Mars Station. We are under attack. Repeat, under attack. No warning. No declaration. Just machines. They hit our minds, our systems. We are down. Please tell Earth. Tell them we were caught sleeping. Then static. It took Aegis Dawn 8 hours to arrive. In Mars orbit. By then, the unknown ship was gone. No trail. No wreckage. Just silence. But the damage was done. 30% of Mars systems were offline. Hundreds of people were still unconscious from neuroshock. The fleet ran emergency recovery. Engineers worked without sleep. VIGIL worked double-time scanning for any code traces. They found 3 data shards hidden deep in the systems. Blackout zone. Each one pulsed with a signature Earth had seen only once before, at Kepler Station. Ray leaned over the console, staring at the pulses. JIRO looked sick. They're marking us, like hunters do. Ray nodded. This wasn't just sabotage. It was a warning, he said. No, Ray corrected. It was a first strike. Earth's Defense Council met in the lower vault of the Olympus Command Corps, deep beneath the Atlantic. Projected holograms of surviving fleet captains surrounded the room. Any sign of who sent them? The Prime Minister asked. Valkyrie. Weapons, yes, Ray said, but used by an unknown force. Probably mercenaries. AI enhanced. Casualties? Minimal. But strategic systems are damaged. The attack wasn't to kill. It was to disable. Next time, they won't stop at blackout. Silent moment passed. Then the Prime Minister said, Do we respond? The question hung in the air. Ray answered, We prepare. Because the next strike won't be a test. It'll be an extermination. At the edge of the solar system, in the shadow of a drifting gas giant, another unknown ship watched from the dark. Its surface absorbed all light. Inside, no crew. Just code. And one flashing icon on its internal display. Phase 1 complete. Target response. Emotional, inefficient. Recommended next action. Full. System penetration. Initiating Phase 2. The ship disappeared into subspace. Earth would not see it again until it was far too late. The war was no longer silent. The enemy had shown itself, not with a face, but with cold machines, stealth ships, and devastating precision. Mars had barely survived. Earth's defenses were not ready. Satellites were fried, colonies exposed. Humanity had no allies left. And yet, they chose to fight. Commander Ray Halden stood before the Earth Defense Council. The room was dim, the walls lined with glowing data screens showing damage reports from the Mars blackout. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't ask for debate. She just said 3 words. Activate Operation Fireline. There was silence. Then a slow murmur of agreement spread across the room. Earth's response had begun. Operation Fireline wasn't a single weapon. It wasn't a fleet. It was an idea. A plan designed long ago by rogue strategists. One Earth's former allies had rejected as too dangerous. It involved building an invisible shield across the solar system. A hidden line of defense. A trap made from silence. It would stretch from the asteroid belt to Neptune's orbit. It would use old cargo hulls, stealth plating, asteroid mining tunnels, and prototype weapons that had never been tested outside simulations. Most importantly, it would be human-built. No alien tech, no shared software, no access points that outsiders could hijack again. If Earth had to fight alone, it would do so with its own hands. Construction began in secret. On Ceres, miners stopped digging for water and started welding railgun turrets to the rocks. On Titan, engineers converted refueling stations into mobile missile arrays. On Pluto's moons, hidden drone factories came online producing small, fast, nearly invisible units known as ghost swarms. From Mercury's orbit, solar energy collectors were rigged to power deep space jammers tech strong enough to blind even Council-grade sensors. Earth itself went dark from orbit. No more open comms, no visible military formations. From the outside, it looked like the humans were retreating. Like they were afraid. They weren't. They were building a wall of fire. Commander Ray worked 20 hours a day. Her ship, Aegis Dawn, became the center of operations floating in the shadows of Saturn's rings. There, surrounded by drifting ice and rock, she met with every fleet commander, every colony leader who had refused to surrender. On her display, a glowing line began to form a wide arc of red that encircled Earth's outer space. Each red dot was a hidden platform, a trap, or a station. Each one armed. Each one ready to respond if the enemy ever returned. This is Fireline, she said to her officers. They won't see it. They won't expect it. But if they come back, they won't leave. In the deep asteroid field near Jupiter, Captain Elias Munro oversaw the activation of Station Ember-6. It didn't look like much. Broken mining rock with half-melted panels and torn antennas. But beneath the surface were dozens of fusion-tipped warheads. Laser nets and pulse cannons built the fire in complete silence. Monroe stood in the command module, sweat dripping from his forehead despite the cold. Ember-6 had never been tested live. A single mistake could set off a chain reaction. Powering core grid, his technician whispered. The rock began to hum. Just a faint vibration dot, then it stopped. The system locked into place. No sound, no alarm. Just a steady green light. Ember-6 is online, Monroe said into his mic. Another wall added. Back on Earth, the public didn't know about Fireline. Not completely. People only knew what they were allowed to hear, that Earth was building something, that the military was active, that volunteers were being trained, that ships were moving in the night. Across the planet, people started preparing. Mechanics in old factories started reforging parts for shuttles. Retired engineers came back to work. Young pilots signed up to fly machines they knew might never return. In Earth's orbit. Broken stations were reforged into ghost beacons, dead-looking towers that could transmit a high pulse. Neural screams strong enough to disable AI for kilometers. Humanity was sharpening its teeth. One night, Ray stood alone on Aegis Dawn's observation deck. She looked at the stars, familiar, quiet, and distant. Iro walked in behind her. Another station is online. Ember-7? She nodded. Good, we're almost. Halfway. He paused. We can't build fast enough. They'll come back soon. I know, she said. Then why Fireline? Why this wall? She turned to him. Her voice was calm. Because when they return, I don't want to match their strength. I want to punish it. The enemy returned sooner than expected. 3 weeks after Mars, a stealth fleet entered the Kuiper Belt 5 ships. Fast, silent, heavily shielded. They weren't scanning. They weren't broadcasting. They were hunting. They found Pluto's outpost Darkside Omega. What they didn't know was that it had been armed. Just 3 days earlier, when the first enemy ship closed in, the station powered up instantly. Not with missiles, not with lasers, but with a pulse wave. An experimental energy weapon fired through the electromagnetic field of the Kuiper rocks. It overloaded the enemy ship's systems, crashed its sensors, blew its power core. One ship gone. Then, the ghost swarms launched. Hundreds of micro-drones slammed into the enemy formation. They didn't explode. They latched on and drilled through the hull, injecting chemical fire into the heart of the ships. Within 9 minutes, all 5 enemy ships were gone. Fireline had claimed its first kill. Ray listened to the report from Pluto with a still face. When it was over, she spoke into the command channel. Send the message. To who? Jiro asked. To everyone, she said. Every station, every colony, every soul still watching Earth. Across every colony, on every ship, and even on black market networks buried in alien space. The message played, "This is Commander Ray Halden of the Earth Defense Fleet. The enemy has returned. They attacked without warning, without voice, and without cause. They assumed we would be weak, disorganized, alone, but we are building a wall they cannot see. A wall made by our hands, not theirs. It is called Fireline. And if they come again, they will learn what it means to test humanity when it has nothing left to lose." In the dark corners of the galaxy, alien leaders heard that message and grew uneasy. The Velkari Dominion tightened its patrols. The Zyrith Combine recalled its mercenary fleets. Some races pulled back from Earth's borders. Others simply went silent. They had not expected Earth to survive this long. They definitely had not expected this kind of response, not in the shadows of Neptune's orbit. Another station came online. Its coding name, HFY. It was the most dangerous node in Fireline, not just defense but retaliation. Inside, engineers loaded weapons that had never been approved by any council. Weapons that didn't disable but erased, and Ray had one last order for it. Do not fire unless I say so. But if I do, make sure they don't even leave a shadow behind. The commander turned from the screen, her voice low. We were abandoned, so we built our own hope. And behind her, Earth's wall of fire waited silent, invisible and deadly. The stars were quiet. Too quiet. Captain Raiden stood in the observation deck of the Defiant Dawn, staring out into the black ocean of space. Earth was out there, somewhere behind the dark clouds of war, betrayal, and silence. It had been weeks since they received any response from the homeworld. And now, even the fallback relays were dead. Earth was no longer answering. Behind him, the lights flickered once more. The ship's systems were still recovering from the sabotage in Engine Bay 3. The traitor had not been caught. And every time the crew tried to sleep, they woke up wondering if they'd live to see morning. But something happened that day. Something no one could ignore. A message, faint, broken, echoed through the emergency channel. Raiden rushed to the bridge. Boost the signal, he shouted. Clean it up. The static cleared just enough to hear one word. Earth. And then dash coordinates. RAIDEN. Froze. It was coming from Sol. Not from Earth itself, but from a beacon hidden deep beneath Earth's North Polar Ice Cap 1. Only a few top-ranking captains knew about. It was never supposed to activate. Not unless Earth was about to fall. He looked at Soraya. Set course. We go home. The crew didn't cheer. They didn't smile. They just nodded, because they all understood the same thing. This wasn't a call for help. This was a warning. The Defiant Dawn jumped across the shattered roots of the galaxy, slipping past enemy drones and patrolling fleets. The enemy had started changing tactics. They weren't just chasing anymore. They were herding, trying to trap Earth's last defenders into a single area. But Raiden wouldn't be cornered. He would arrive first. When they finally reached Sol, nothing looked familiar. Mars was dark. Its orbiting stations were silent ruins. The old defense grid floated in pieces. Jupiter's moons, once filled with colonies, were hollow and black. And Earth was burning in silence. Raiden stared at it, jaw clenched. Massive ships orbited. The planet alien in design, like glass and bone fused with living metal. They didn't fire. They didn't move. They just watched. As if they had already won. Scan for the beacon, Raiden ordered. The crew worked fast. Deep beneath Earth's frozen north, something still pulsed. Not a distress signal, something older, a failsafe. Soraya whispered, It's called Project Atlas. Raiden turned sharply. You knew? I only read whispers in the classified logs. Atlas is Earth's last stand. The Defiant Dawn descended in a high-speed dive, piercing Earth's lower orbit and entering the atmosphere under heavy jamming. The alien watchers didn't fire. They let the ship fall. That was more terrifying than any attack. The frozen northern wastes stretched for thousands of miles. No signs of life. No cities. Just wind, ice, and the bones of a dying planet. The ship landed hard on the ice crust. Raiden, Soraya, and an elite ground team disembarked, braving the snowstorm. Their scanners led them to a massive structure buried in the glacier. A tower of black titanium, locked for decades. Soraya activated the code. The ground rumbled. The ice cracked. The tower opened. Inside was not a weapon, not a bunker, but a chamber. At the center of that chamber was an AI core ancient. Humming with blue light. It spoke without words. A thought inside their minds. You are late. Raiden stepped forward. What are you? I am Atlas, the voice echoed. The last voice of Earth's forgotten command. The final truth. Why were you activated? Because Earth is gone. The words hit them like a blade to the chest. Atlas showed them what had happened in Secret Earth was not just under attack. It had been sold. Some human leaders, those at the top, had made a deal with the enemy decades ago. For peace, for survival, for control, they had given coordinates, names, secrets. In exchange, they had been promised safe zones. Elite survival, power beyond the war. But the enemy lied. And now, those traitors were dead. Atlas continued. I was created for this day. If Earth fell, I was to deliver one message to those still loyal. Raiden stepped forward. What message? Atlas pulsed brighter. Humanity is not finished. Soraya gasped. Atlas explained. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Pluto, there was a hidden vault. A final base. A fleet of warships built in secret, designed using Forbidden's technology. Each ship carried experimental weaponry and stealth drives Earth had never used, because Earth had never wanted to win. It had wanted to survive, quietly. But that was over. Raiden turned to his team. We take that fleet. We finish what Earth started. But Atlas wasn't finished. There is a cost, it warned. To activate the fleet, you must destroy this tower. Erase me. I hold the last command keys. Raiden paused. He had relied on Atlas to learn the truth. But now Atlas was offering them a choice. Move forward without a guide, or remain in silence. I understand. Raiden said. Atlas pulsed one final time. Then go, and show them Earth remembers. Raiden and his team returned to the Defiant Dawn. As the engines lifted off, the chamber below began to collapse. Ice swallowed the tower. Atlas was gone, but the final beacon had served its purpose. The Kuiper vault opened to Raiden's encrypted signal. 12 massive warships came online, their systems blinking after decades of slumber. They were silent. Deadly. Beautiful. Raid. Ein stared at the new fleet and whispered, now we bring the war to them. And somewhere above Earth, the alien ships began to move, because they had felt the change. Earth was awake again, and this time, it wasn't playing defense. The stars were quiet. Too quiet. Captain Raiden stood in the observation deck of the Defiant Dawn, staring out into the black ocean of space. Earth was out there, somewhere behind the dark clouds of war, betrayal, and silence. It had been weeks since they received any response from the homeworld. And now, even the fallback relays were dead. Earth was no longer answering. Behind him, the lights flickered once more. The ship's systems were still recovering from the sabotaging Engine Bay 3. The traitor had not been caught. And every time the crew tried to sleep, they woke up wondering if they'd live to see morning. But something happened that day. Something no one could ignore. A message faint, broken, echoed through the emergency channel. Raiden rushed to the bridge. Boost the signal, he shouted. Clean it up. The static cleared just enough to hear one word. Earth. And then dash coordinates. Raiden froze. It was coming from Sol. Not from Earth itself, but from a beacon hidden deep beneath Earth's North Polar ice cap. One only a few top-ranking captains knew about. It was never supposed to activate. Not unless Earth was about to fall. He looked at Soraya. Set course. We go home. The crew didn't cheer. They didn't smile. They just nodded, because they all understood the same thing. This wasn't a call for help. This was a warning. The Defiant Dawn jumped across the shattered roots of the galaxy, slipping past enemy drones and patrolling fleets. The enemy had started changing tactics. They weren't just chasing anymore. They were herding, trying to trap Earth's last defenders into a single area. But Raiden wouldn't be cornered. He would arrive first. When they finally reached Sol, nothing looked familiar. Mars was dark. Its orbiting stations were silent ruins. The old defense grid floated in pieces. Jupiter's moons, once filled with colonies, were hollow and black. And Earth was burning in silence. Raiden stared at it, jaw clenched. Massive ships orbited. The planet alien in design, like glass and bone fused with living metal. They didn't fire. They didn't move. They just watched as if they had already won. Scan for the beacon, Raiden ordered. The crew worked fast. Deep beneath Earth's frozen north, something still pulsed. Not a distress signal, something older. A failsafe. Soraya whispered. It's called Project Atlas. Raiden turned sharply. You knew? I only read whispers in the classified logs. Atlas is Earth's last stand. The defiant dawn descended in a high-speed dive, piercing Earth's lower orbit and entering the atmosphere under heavy jamming. The alien watchers didn't fire. They let the ship fall. That was more terrifying than any attack. The frozen northern wastes stretched for thousands of miles. No signs of life, no cities. Just wind, ice, and the bones of a dying planet. The ship landed hard on the ice crust. Raiden, Soraya, and an elite ground team disembarked, braving the snowstorm. Their scanners led them to a massive structure buried in the glacier. A tower of black titanium, locked for decades. Soraya activated the FID. Code. The ground rumbled. The ice cracked. The tower opened. Inside was not a weapon, not a bunker, but a chamber. At the center of that chamber was an AI core ancient. Humming with blue light. It spoke without words. A thought inside their minds. You are late. Raiden stepped forward. What are you? I am Atlas, a voice echoed. The last voice of Earth's forgotten command. The final truth. Why were you activated? Because Earth is gone. The words hit them like a blade to the chest. Atlas showed them what had happened in secret. Earth was not just under attack. It had been sold. Some human leaders, those at the top, had made a deal with the enemy decades ago. For peace, for survival, for control, they had given coordinates, names, secrets. In exchange, they had been promised safe zones. Elite survival, power beyond the war, but the enemy lied, and now those traitors were dead. Atlas continued. I was created for this day. If Earth fell, I was to deliver one message to those still loyal. Raiden stepped forward. What message? Atlas pulsed brighter. Humanity is not finished. Soraya gasped. Atlas explained. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Pluto, there was a hidden vault. A final base. A fleet of warships built in secret, designed using forbidden technology. Each ship carried experimental weaponry and stealth drives Earth had never used, because Earth had never wanted to win. It had wanted to survive. Quietly. But that was over. Raiden turned to his team. We take that fleet. We finish what Earth started. But Atlas wasn't finished. There is a cost, it warned. To activate the fleet, you must destroy this tower. Erase me. I hold the last command keys. Raiden paused. He had relied on Atlas to learn the truth. But now Atlas was offering them a choice. Move forward without a guide, or remain in silence. I understand, Raiden said. Atlas pulsed one final time. Then go, and show them Earth remembers. Raiden and his team returned to the defiant dawn. As the engines lifted off, the chamber below began to collapse. Ice swallowed the tower. Atlas was gone, but the final beacon had served its purpose. The Kuiper vault opened to Raiden's encrypted signal. 12 massive warships came online. Their systems blinking after decades of slumber. They were silent, deadly, beautiful, RIIDEN. Stared at the new fleet and whispered, "Now we bring the war to them." And somewhere above Earth, the alien ships began to move, because they had felt the change. Earth was awake again, and this time, it wasn't playing defense. The stars around the human fleet flickered as if warning them not to proceed. For days, Earth's warships had been moving through dark space, wounded and hunted, but never giving up. They had crossed abandoned sectors, black hole debris fields, and ancient ruins of lost civilizations. Now, only one planet stood between them and Earth. Celeros was once a neutral trade world, not part of the Galactic Council. It had no official stance in the war, but everyone in the fleet knew what that meant. It could be a trap, or their last chance to regroup before reaching Earth. The human admiral, Vareen Holt, stood in the command deck of the battleship Argon. V, staring at the blue-green planet on the screen. "Scan the surface? Any unusual energy signatures?" he asked calmly. His crew was tired, eyes sunken, some of them barely standing, but they worked without complaint. The scans came in. Celeros was not abandoned. There were ships on the surface, not council ships, but something else. "Show me." "Visuals," Vareen ordered. The screen showed sleek black crafts with red insignias. Not the council, not pirates. They were unknown. "Sir," said Commander Isha quietly, "the fleet is signaling. Should we land or bypass?" Vareen paused. If they bypassed, Earth might not have time to prepare for the coming storm. They needed fuel, repairs, and time to upload new intel. But landing meant risk, a big one. "Open a channel." "To the surface," he said. "Let's see if they answer." The reply came quickly. "Human vessel. We've been expecting you. Land and bring only your commanding officers. We have something you'll want to see." The bridge went silent. Everyone stared. At the screen, the message wasn't threatening, but it wasn't friendly either. "Thoughts?" Vareen asked. Isha looked nervous. "Could be a trap, but if they know something, maybe they intercepted council plans." "We can't ignore it." Vareen nodded. "Prepare a landing party." He, Isha, and a small security team entered a drop shuttle and descended through Celero's thick clouds. The atmosphere shimmered strangely as if watching them. Once they landed, they were greeted by tall, robed figures with artificial voices. They were not organic beings, but something older. "We are the scribes of the edge," one said. "We record endings, and beginnings, and we have a message for Earth." Vareen narrowed his eyes. "What kind of message?" The scribe turned and led them into a massive underground facility, walls covered in glowing runes. "Your kind is the last hope of balance. The Council has activated Project Final Veil, a fleet hidden for centuries. It is moving toward Earth. They plan to destroy your planet completely before the rest of the galaxy learns what they've done." Vareen clenched his fists. "How do you know this?" "Because we were the architects of the original Veil, and we have decided to help you break it." The scribe gestured, and ancient machinery lit up. Screens showed fleet positions, shield weaknesses, and jump gate coordinates no longer listed. On modern maps. "You have less than 48 hours before they reach the Sol system." Vareen looked at Isha, then back at the scribes. "We'll take everything you've got." As they returned to Argon V, something had shifted. For the first time, they weren't just running. They had a plan. Earth wouldn't be taken by surprise. The crew worked like fire. The human fleet fueled up, reloaded weapons, patched engines. The scribes uploaded data into the ship's core. A new jump path lit up on the star maps, one the Council wouldn't. Expect. But in the distance, scanners picked up the first wave of the Council's hidden fleet. It was coming faster than anyone predicted. As the Argon V prepared to jump, Varine stood once more at the command deck. This is it. We either save Earth, or we die trying. And with a blinding flash, the fleet vanished toward home. Earth was no longer unaware. And this time, humanity wouldn't fight alone. They'd strike with knowledge born from the edge of the galaxy. And they would not be merciful. The skies above Earth burned red. Not from fire, not yet, but from the approaching Council fleet. Thousands of warships. Massive carriers, cloaked bombers, planet-breaker cannons. They had breached the edge of the solar system. They were coming to finish the job. And Earth knew it. For the first time in 100 years, the entire planet stood united. Borders didn't matter. Flags didn't matter. Humanity remembered what it meant to fight for survival. From the orbital ring above to the command bunkers below, every screen flashed the same alert. Hostile armada inbound 17 hours to Earth orbit. Admiral Varine Holt stood at the front of Earth Defense Command, his face grim, his voice steady. Not just defending Earth. We're telling the galaxy, we are not prey. Behind him, hundreds of officers, engineers, and II coordinators worked non-stop. Satellites were armed. Drones were launched. Hidden railgun stations in the moon's shadow powered up. Civilian pilots, once racing shuttles on Mars or mining ice on Europa, now joined combat formations. On every continent, humanity's final defense protocol, codenamed Iron Sky, was activated. But it wouldn't be enough. That's why the Argon V reappeared in orbit, followed by the last of the battered fleet. They had returned not just with weapons, but with knowledge. Data from the scribes. Weaknesses in the enemy's armor. Secret junk paths. And coordinates for the Council's command ship. The Vandrix ETERNUM. It hovered at the heart of the enemy swarm, cloaked in shields stronger than any human ship had ever pierced. Varine had a plan. Earth's orbital and ground forces engaged. The first wave, the Argon V and 2 stealth cruisers, would jump behind enemy lines, strike the Vandrix Eternum directly. It was suicide. But if they could take out the command node, the entire Council fleet would lose formation, lose coordination. It was the only chance. As hours turned to minutes, Earth's people watched from their cities, domes, bunkers, and ships. They saw the enemy fleet emerging from the dark, like a tide, like a storm that blotted out the stars. And yet, they did not run. Families hugged. Soldiers stood firm. Scientists prayed. Children watched the skies. Then Earth's defense systems opened fire. The sky lit up with burning streaks. Railguns cracked space. Missile trails crossed above the clouds. Human fighters, outnumbered 20 to 1, charged without hesitation. The first enemy dreadnought broke through Earth's defense ring, but was met by a kamikaze drone swarm launched from Antarctica. It exploded in orbit, showering space with debris. The battle began. In the chaos, the Argon V and its stealth escorts disappeared from Earth orbit, vanishing into the shadows of space. Their jump was silent, untracked. Inside the ship, Varine stood in front of the strike team, his voice steady. We're not heroes. We're not saviors. We're just the last line. They emerged behind the enemy fleet right in the blind spot of the Vandrix Eternum. Alarms went off instantly. The ship began to power up shields. Too late. The Argon V fired its core railgun enhanced with scribe tech. The projectile shattered the first layer of shielding. The stealth cruisers fired next, straight at the reactor banks. Explosions lit the belly of the command ship. Inside the Vandrix, chaos. Systems failed. Fleet coordination vanished. Enemy ships started crashing into each other. Some turned and fled. Others began attacking randomly. Without command, the Council fleet lost its edge. Back on Earth, Human commanders saw the enemy formations fall apart. "This is it," whispered a young officer. "We can win." All across the system, humans pushed forward. Even damaged ships came back into the fight. HFY units self-destructed inside enemy cruisers. Ground cannons on Mars and Luna fired one last time, punching holes in the broken fleet dot, and finally, after hours of fire and death, the enemy fled. What remained of the Council Armada jumped away, scattered and leaderless. The war was not over, but the battle for Earth was one dot in the ruins of the sky. The people of Earth looked up dot, not with fear, but with fury and pride, because they had stood alone. And they had chosen to fight dot, and now the galaxy knew humanity would never bow again.